Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 4 Episode 10. It's called No Time Like the Past. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. This episode is about a man in the 20th century, I presume the future of the 20th century, based on when this was set, but still within, before 2000. And he's got a time machine, and he's going to go back and try and alter history. Which he tries to do for a chunk of the episode, kind of realizes it's not going to work and that just the past will always somehow still happen, like something will always stop him. So he decides to give up and just go back to a time in the past that he sees as being before the worry of world wars and nuclear bombs existed. A piece of the past that he's idolized and sort of given this aura in his head. And he tries to live there, which, also might, things may not go so well. So that is the general gist of the episode. What did you think of No Time Like the Past?
I thought this was the most. We need to fill in a 2-episode length episode, so let's just take 2 episodes that kind of are similar and smash them together. But I did think it was okay. I like the second half more than the first half, though the second half reminds me of a Star Trek episode.
I like the second half more than the first half as well. I would agree with that. I was glad it pivoted a little bit, because I thought to myself when I was watching the first half, which is like him going through 3 different time periods and trying to alter the past by warning someone about a disaster or trying to assassinate Hitler is one of them. It kind of felt like, is this going to be just like 50 minutes of this? Because this will get really repetitive if he just keeps failing over and over and over again.
They should have sent Sam Beckett.
But I did appreciate, though, that they do thematically tie. The first half and second half do thematically sit together fairly well. It does kind of feel like they belong alongside each other, where it's all about the past and trying to change it. But then the second half kind of changes the message into realizing that there was never a time where things were completely okay, where this perfect picture of the past you have in your head before all this like tension didn't exist. Like, he goes back and there was characters, or people in real life even wanting war and glorifying all these things that he doesn't like. And if anything, it was worse because people hadn't seen it on TV yet. They hadn't seen footage of it, so there was this almost extra like pride involved in it. We'll talk about that guy at the dinner table because I've got many things to say about him.
Plant the American flag.
Plant it deep, plant it high, plant it proud. I think that's what he's.
He was so yeah. What a patriot.
Yes.
So theatrical.
So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I would say I liked the episode overall, and it had enough meat on its bone to kind of be into it, especially the second half. So. No Time Like the Past. Yeah, it's a good title.
I think it's a great title.
It's a play on words, it works.
Also works for nostalgia, and yeah.
Also, I would say that I appreciate that in these like first segments that he goes to these different time periods, I appreciate that when he's in Germany or he's in Japan, that there's a character talking to him in English, but I appreciate when they're talking to each other, they speak in either German or Japanese. I was like, I feel like most episodes of this show wouldn't adhere to that. They would just, they magically all speak English, is fine. So,
yeah,
that's nice.
I agree.
I like that. So, yeah. So we get a kind of a simple set of where his time machine is. It's basically just a platform, and there's like a tower with like controls on top. He's got his buddy up top saying, "You can't change the past, but I'll flip the switch if you want me to." And sure enough.
Did you think it was kind of ominous that they kept trying to hide him, like to hide his face? The actual time traveler.
Oh right, okay.
He's in shadow, and then like there's trying to like get a picture of him on the screen, and it's a bit blurry still, trying to get a clear image of him, and I don't know, it's just, I thought it was kind of ominous and weird that they went that direction.
I think it was just because it's only for the first minute or two. I think it's just because they wanted that moment where he steps on the platform and the lights come on for the time travel machine to start working. I think they just wanted that to feel like a big deal, so it's like that's the first time you see him properly.
I wonder if the actor is someone who was more recognizable back then too. Maybe it was a surprise reveal.
Dana Andrews. Let's see if he's got.
I thought he was good. I don't recognize him.
He's good.
Probably like a Western actor.
He was in Laura. He was in The Best Years of Our Lives. He was in Fallen Angel, Night of the Demon. Oh, I've seen that one, I think. He's in a lot of movies. I don't know if he's like a huge famous actor, but he's in a shit ton of stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, the first place he goes is Japan. He tries to warn only hours before it happened. I feel like you've got a time machine. Why not go like a couple of days in advance so they could evacuate the whole city? Instead of, you can evacuate a couple thousand maybe by the time it hits, which turns out to be complete bullshit because the thing goes off is like he's in this like soldier's office or whatever it is, and as soon as he leaves, the nuclear bomb goes off, and it's like, they weren't giving them a lot of time there, right? I know he said he get held for 6 hours, but 6 hours is not enough time to evacuate a city, even if they believe you the instant you say something.
Maybe it was a little bit tricky to narrow the time exactly.
I'm just saying.
Everything was so much more analog.
Of course.
When they built time machines.
Analog time machine, yes. So yes, he's trying to warn this captain or general or whoever he is, and obviously he just thinks he's crazy. He's like, no, I'm not doing this. I did think this is just like a minor thing, but I did think that when the nuclear bomb goes off, you don't see like a mushroom cloud. It's all just inside this guy's office. You only see you see a flash. But I think it would have probably been more effective if you just saw a white flash and then it cut to the next scene, because it then shows you what looked like just like a sort of regular explosion happen where the wall comes in, and I'm like, that feels like more like a grenade went off outside the window than a nuclear bomb. Weak.
Yeah, I agree. I was worried for our time traveler. Like, how'd he get out of there?
Yeah, he seems to always be in trouble or just about to die when it seems like, I don't know if like maybe dying just triggers the time travel, so he just goes, oops, snap back.
I mean, I'm sure like I guess he can just control when he's out of there, or maybe that's something they can time for. Like, okay, we know you have to be out of here before the bomb hits, and we know what time the bomb's going to hit, so we'll just get you out of there.
I think in the back half he chooses just when to come home, so I think he can just control it.
Yeah, that's true.
So then he goes to Germany, 1939, and Hitler's across the road making his big speech. So he's got his sniper rifle out.
He made a mistake. He was supposed to go after baby Hitler. Everyone knows this.
Yeah, well, because ultimately what brings him down is that the maid comes to check on him and he has to hide the gun and stuff. And because he's American and he doesn't give the glowing answer of praise for the Fuhrer that she wants, she goes and gets a couple of, SS the soldiers to come and take him in.
I was a little frustrated that he answered the door for room service when he was about to blow the Adolf's brains out.
Just take the shot. Just take the shot. He's standing right there.
Yeah.
You can time travel back to the present as soon as you've done it. Like why
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate the idea that something, fate or whatever, is trying to like get in the way of him trying to change history. And so there's always going to be some sort of obstacle that he can't quite account for. But I did still find it frustrating because he didn't have to answer the door. She just said it was room service. All you have to do is say, I'm busy.
Yeah, or even when she's in the room, like, just like grab her, knock her out, or tie her up or something. Like, again, you're going to travel as soon as after you've taken the shot anyway, so you're not going to face any repercussions for it. So just kidnap her, so she can't go and tell the mean German Nazi soldiers to come and get you. Come on, like, this is not rocket science, dude. I mean, I know you built a time machine, so you're clearly meant to be smarter than I am, but I don't know. Some of your decisions are leaving a little bit of room to be desired. That's all I'm saying.
A little bit.
Yeah, and then the third one is a ship from 1907 that sinks, which is partially why the Americans enter World War One. Apparently, I don't remember this from history class, but I'll take his word for it. And he tries to convince the captain, and the captain's like, he still tells him to get out and whatever, and doesn't believe him. But there's just this little look in his face after, is like, what if, maybe he's, and I think it's going to keep going to different time periods until he finally convinces someone that the thing he's saying is going to happen. But instead, after this, it takes this swerve where he makes a choice about a third of the episode in that he's instead going to just like escape this modern day world where there's a threat of nuclear bombs, where there's a threat of all these. Obviously, the fact that we're in the Cold War when this is being made. This is only a couple of years after the, or even just a year after the Cuban Missile Crisis at this point. So obviously these ideas are fresh in the zeitgeist. He says, I am picking this town in Indiana, 1881, I think the year was, and I'm going to go live there because it's the perfect little small town with parades and 4th of July parties, and it's the idyllic little town that I've always dreamt of being in, and it's before all this shit started. And I actually think the episode from this point, like, the first chunk's alright. Like, it's kind of fun and entertaining to watch him, like, try, even though he's making some weird choices.
It feels like the kind of Rod Serling episode we would get in previous seasons. Yeah.
But I think from this point on, when he makes this choice to go back because he thinks he can escape, this, I think the lesson that, no, like, these things were always building, even if, like, they're older and maybe you don't recognize them as well as the things that were more direct from the last, like, 30, 40, years, but there's still going to be things here. As soon as he arrives, he's excited because it's only a nickel to buy a beer. A nickel? Oh.
I was wondering, like, did he have to exchange all of his currency for old currency? Like, otherwise, like, you can't give him a nickel with a president's face on it that hasn't been president yet or something,
Yeah, it glosses over some of those.
I don't know who's on the... It might be Benjamin Franklin, who wasn't president. I think he's on the nickel. I haven't seen one in a while.
I assume he just went and got some old coins and stuff before he went back. Just to... Yeah. If he's planning for this, he prepared for it. And he's probably a rich man.
1961?
He's probably a very rich man. The idea of going back with a couple of hundred and being like, oh, I'm like a millionaire in this time period because of inflation, does sound pretty nice. It's like, oh, treat me like a king, why don't you?
Yeah, better than the Rip Van Winkle caper where they go forward in time.
Oh, yeah. It's the opposite.
Their gold is worth nothing.
So the first thing, though, after he gets his beer is that he sees the newspaper and realizes this is right before the president is going to be assassinated. He's going to be shot the next couple of days.
Garfield.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered because I didn't. This is not a president that
pretty sure that's right.
Non-Americans hear about very much.
Garfield, yeah, he's one of the mutton chop era presidents, I think.
It's kind of shocking that there's been enough presidents that have been like had assassination attempts or successful assassinations that one of them, like, I've just never heard of. Like, okay.
Have you heard of William Henry Harrison?
Nope.
I think he's the shortest term of president.
I thought you were going to say the shortest president. I'm like, well, who cares if he's 4'5"?
Yeah, I don't know who that is, although I would be curious to find out. I think Taft is the fattest, but Trump might have beaten him. But I don't know, Taft was a big guy. But yeah, William Henry Harrison, for his inaugural address, didn't wear a jacket and like caught pneumonia and had to be, it was immediately like bedridden during his first like weeks of president.
I assume this was somewhere in the north of the country then, because...
Well, yeah, DC.
Okay, right. That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it was very cold, it was snowing, and he gave his inaugural address without a jacket, and then was, treated with medicine at the time, which is like leeches and shit, and died. It's my favorite president.
I didn't think I thought I had a couple of candidates for the dumbest president, but honestly, you've just maybe given me a new front runner. So, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's this idea. He has this moment where he's like, shit, like, even now, this, like, chaos, this inhumane activity is already starting. The dominoes that are going to keep falling until things get worse to the time period that I'm from already exist, right? But he tries to make the best of it. He gets boarding across the street, and it's like an old school boarding house with this, strict landlady who's giving him all the rules. And he meets this delightful teacher who teaches the school across the road.
Quaint.
Well, immediate love interest. It's immediately the sparks flying. And the big scene of the episode, I think, where it really kind of starts to feel like I can see the meat in this episode from this point on. It is this dinner scene where it's, the teacher's there, he's there, the landlady's there, and then there's two other guys that are there. And there's this one guy who's just giving his opinion on how he thinks America should just invade every country in Asia and plant the American flag, plant it deep, plant it high, plant it proud. He says that a few times.
Plant the American flag.
And then he complains there was a treaty with Native Americans and they should have just have killed them all with lots of soldiers. And obviously our main character's sitting there getting annoyed. And to the point where, like, at one point the guy accuses him, like, are you a pacifist? Like, that's some sort of, like, you disgusting pacifist.
Yeah. The bartender also, like, laughs with somebody calling him a Democrat or something.
Oh, yeah, he's like, maybe he's a Democrat, and he starts laughing, yeah, because he's, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so it's basically...
That's the real horror of, like, this time travel, is that you're just going to be around a bunch of patriotic Republicans.
Yeah.
Rod Serling knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, the intent is clear here. There's definitely a lot of jabs being taken, and but it's this thing where it's like, yeah, you went further back in time, all you're going to find is that people are more or less empathetic than you are, right?
Well, yeah, they get all their news from propaganda. Not that it's not today, but you know what I mean. It's just clear propaganda without actual seeing what happens during.
There's more avenues of news today. There's more sources. There's more, right? Whereas back then, it's like the newspaper and the telegrams. And, I don't know if the wire was already around in 1881, but like
I don't know. Yeah, they had paper.
They had paper. Yes.
They had newsboys, right? Extra.
Yes. So, it sets up this idea that, like, he's encountering some insufferable people, and I was sort of laughing because I was like, oh god, this is like Fox News doesn't exist yet, but this guy, like, he would definitely be watching it. That's all I'm saying. So he keeps going on, and eventually the main character, Paul, sort of like stands up and sort of like chews him out for like wanting bloodshed. You're this armchair warrior who wants all of this, but you've never actually seen someone be hurt in the battlefield or had to bury a dead body. You've got so much pride on the military, but you've never actually had to be out there and fight yourself. And chews him out, and it's like that's all we need is more bloodshed, right? And obviously there's a couple of things the teacher says which clearly like makes him like her more, because she chimes in before he does, because he's trying to hold back, he's trying to like not get involved, not change anything, and she kind of speaks up first, and then like eventually the guy sets him off because he says something really inane, and he's like, all right, enough of this shit, and goes to town. So yeah, it's I thought this was a good scene because it's entertaining because this guy's very over the top, and it gives our main character a chance to like unleash, but it kind of it's making its point very well, is that there's no escaping this, and if anything it's almost, yeah, you don't have nuclear bombs in the past, but the ignorance and the lack of sympathy is arguably just going to be worse and worse and worse the more you go back, because information's even more limited, and people can be even more ignorant than they perhaps are in his present day, and and our present day too. So
I think the teacher is there to also represent that. Yeah, there's obviously you're going to get more empathy from a character that's written to be a woman who's also a matriarch figure for children, and teaching them there are other ways, and compassion and stuff like that. But it also shows that our main character, she's drawn to him because he is a man of the future, a man who wants peace, a man who wants something else. So I think that's kind of a nice
It also rang alarmingly true. Like, he immediately, as soon as she says, "Oh no, like, I think we've had enough fighting, we should have more peace," or whatever, immediately this guy's like, "Oh, I hope that's not what you're teaching to the children of tomorrow. You're not teaching that drivel. Peace. Oh, no. Like, again, like the idea of people being really critical of what teachers are teaching kids because it doesn't align with their values, because they think their values are what should be taught and anything else is wrong, kind of thing. Because peace. My God, what a bitch.
Yeah, sounds awful.
So, like I thought it was a really good scene, and it leads to, like, after he storms out, she chases it after him, and they have a kiss, and this is when the telegram comes through. They see, like, people reacting to the news that the president's been shot, and, like, she sees enough here to sort of start to question, like you knew that, you clearly knew that what he was about to say, so. Like, how do you explain that? And she's starting to ask questions a little bit. Obviously, she's not going to think time traveler. She never even approaches that idea, but...
does she even consider that maybe he was, like, in on it in some way?
I don't think she does. I was thinking it could go that way, where maybe she questions that. I think... because that's the sort of thing where I think if someone predicts something, like one thing, you might think, oh, they're part of the conspiracy or whatever. I think over time, though, as they get bigger and bigger things right, when they've been maybe, like, locked away because they assumed he was guilty of something, it's like, okay, clearly he's, like, just either psychic or from the future. Like, there's a certain point where that's the only two options.
Right.
But, yeah, but no, she doesn't, because I think that's the thing, is that she's like, she already thinks he's a good man, so I don't think it ever crosses her mind that he's involved in anything, because the way he's spoken about, what he's discussed, and the way he reacts to the news doesn't seem like someone who's like, oh, I'm part of this plan and it's just been pulled off, in fact, she actually kind of nails him quite specifically. You know what I mean? Not that. she nails, because she says to him, you look like a man who's fallen in love, but not with a person, with, like, a time and place, and it's like, that's oddly accurate. Like, you've nailed exactly what he's going through with this town. Like, he's in love with this town, or at least he's trying to be. He thinks he is, until maybe more things start to crop up. Yeah. So.
I mean, it is like I don't know whose idyllic version of town this is. I suppose everyone's a bit nostalgic for some other time, but because, I mean, this takes place, the show was made in the 60s, so, like, the 30s would be idyllic, maybe, for those people. But this is like the 1880s, so I don't know.
I don't know if the 30s are that idyllic, just because, the Great Depression, all that stuff. It's not exactly a fun time period.
There were still affluent areas.
Sure, but I think
suburban areas.
This guy wasn't born in this time period, though. Like, the idyllic idea of it is because he was never there. This is not some nostalgia from his past. This is him looking at a time period he wasn't in and thinking, oh, this looks great.
Yeah, this is still, like, Victorian, end of Victorian, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, I think that idea of, like, romanticizing the past that you weren't in because you don't have the full context of it, and then him slowly kind of remembering things, and ultimately it's the remembering that there's a fire at the school which kills or injures like a dozen kids, is kind of like what makes him scared and makes him try to change things, and ultimately just makes it happen. It's him interfering with this cart driver selling oil or whatever it is that ends up igniting the fire in the first place. And then, of course, it never really answers it, but there's a question, like, was he always going to be the one that caused that, or was this like a fate correction thing where because he was trying to intervene, fate just made it so that it was now him that started it? Like, whatever way it is, ultimately it happened, and he makes the choice to go home.
Yeah. Does the episode in any way suggest that he's also he's not responsible for the other things, obviously, but, like, he's responsible for people making the wrong decisions on those days because he appeared?
No, I don't think so, because none of them even knew there was a decision to be made.
Yeah.
Like, the assassination attempt, there was no decision being made. Like, he didn't... It's not like there was another assassin that he stumbled into by accident and stopped him from killing Hitler. Although that would be a funny plot. If someone travelled back in time and tried to kill Hitler, but inadvertently, like, stopped a real assassin at the time who was going to do it. Oh, that's a genius idea. That's the sort of story you tell about someone who's a complete and total screw up, and like that's the ultimate screw up. Is that
that's the Mr. Bean version of it, right?
Yeah, and then, like, no one was going to evacuate Hiroshima just because he wasn't there. No one was going to change the course of the ship because he wasn't there. So I don't think it's saying that.
Yeah, okay.
I think ultimately his lesson is that, the past is like this, so what's important is to try and change the future. So he has to be back in his own time and try and make the world better going forward. He has to try and influence the time he's in.
I was getting a lot of City on the Edge of Forever vibes from the second part of this too, when he's fallen in love with this woman.
Oh, sure.
From another time, but like there's something that bad that could happen to her because she, is the teacher in the schoolhouse is the little thing that burns down. And
this predates Star Trek. Just put that out there.
Yeah, could have been like, obviously Gene Roddenberry watched Twilight Zone.
Of course it did. So. And I suspect who's the writer of that episode? Just a famous writer. So was it Harlan Ellison?
Oh, maybe.
I'll check. I'll check while you're.
Yeah. So like, just the idea of, I know something bad's going to happen and I love this woman. So do I interfere or do I let history just run its course? Ooh. And, clearly this version of time travel won't allow him to change anything anyway.
Yeah.
Any luck?
Just about. I'm getting there. Just about. Harlan Ellison. Yes, I was right. Yes.
Yeah.
And a couple of uncredited writers as well, who I assume touched up for the screenplay. But yeah, he was the writer. I have to assume Harlan Ellison was also someone who was watching Twilight Zone, just because science fiction guy, all that. Yeah, so I think the final message is good, and I think the various lessons he learns, and it's not that you shouldn't learn lessons from the past, like, understanding why things happened in the past and the mistakes that people made are important, but you can't go back and change them. All you can do is use them to try and avoid further disasters in the future. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And our lead guy is some sort of scholar. I mean, he knows everything about history. He even knows the exact second that Garfield is about to be assassinated. Well, and actually, he remembers things like a random schoolhouse being burnt down.
Yeah. Well, when he first goes into the boarding room and he's talking to the landlady, she says, "What do you do for work?" And she's been, it's very like nosy and inquisitive. And he's like, "I'm a physicist." And she's like, "When I've got time, you'll have to explain to me what that is." And I assume there was such a thing. Obviously, like there is physicists in this time period, but clearly it's not something that your average person really knows about.
Sure. Yeah.
I have to imagine some of the fact that you have carts and things going about, there's some physics involved in that. There's people who understand some physics somewhere.
Yeah. I imagine so. I mean, definitely astronomy was a big thing. So
there's definitely chemistry, because all that booze and stuff. You don't get that without chemistry. Chemistry's been a thing for eons.
That's true.
So
ever since we learned how to ferment fruit.
Yes. Okay, chemistry is the study of transformation. Okay.
Yes, I've heard that.
Great scholar, Walter White. Look him up. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's like a blowaway episode, but I think it's got a pretty nice message. I think it's the main lead's pretty good in the role. It just maybe suffers from a couple of silly choices that he makes early on that feel like, oh, this feels like he's not making smart choices in the moment. That don't really track with what I like. And it's not being nitpicky either. It's like really simple stuff, like, oh, maybe giving yourself more time for this, maybe not answering the door, or not letting the maid who's now suspicious of you wander away, so you can be apprehended potentially like 2 minutes later.
You have a gun.
Yeah. Like, you've got a lot of choices at play, so it's because by the time we got to the third one, which was him on the boat trying to convince the captain to divert course, I was like, what about this that makes you think it's going to be different this time, that he's going to believe you? Like, why would he believe you? So did he think about taking back proof at any point? Yeah, maybe they'd question if it's real or not, but at least if you had like a newspaper or something that said, hey, this boat sinks tomorrow, like maybe the captain would think about it. Also, it's very adorable, and I'm sure this is just because we're watching the pristine HD version now that's been remastered, but the shot of the submarine, you can see the string pulling the miniature.
Torpedo?
Not the torpedo, just the sub itself.
Submarine.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. It looked like a real torpedo footage, actually. So.
The second shot was an archive shot, yeah, for sure. But the shot of the submarine was like a not a toy, but like a miniature, and you could see the string that was pulling it along in the water.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but that sounds adorable.
Yeah, it's cute. Yeah, that's what it is. All right, there you go. That's
What's coming up next time? We got a little bit of a preview.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, Rod obviously showed up, and we're getting a story.
Man's going to space.
Well, I don't think he's going to space. I think he's supposed to go to space, and I think he.
Something happens.
Well, I was thinking he goes to an alternate dimension, but it sounds like we're still on the same Earth, but it's like he comes back, because the main thing we see, other than a bit of the launch going a bit haywire with him saying "Mayday, Mayday, Cap Cobb, something's going wrong," is two people examining like the shuttle he comes back, or the landing pod he comes back down on, and they're saying it looks like it's supposed to, but it's not exactly the same one he left in. So it's like he's went somewhere and something's made a copy or something. So where did he go? So maybe he went to visit aliens, maybe he went to an alternate Earth, maybe I don't know.
It sounds kind of exciting. I mean, I've been enjoying the episodes. For some reason, there was a big fear of like space travel back in this time, where, obviously we hadn't done too much yet as far as putting man in space, but there's a lot of fear, I guess, about traveling outside of the Earth's atmosphere back then. Like, they don't know what's out there, what's going to happen. So all these look backs into that fear kind of been interesting.
I think it did kind of happen by this point though, right? I'm sure they'd sent someone into orbit by now.
Yeah, maybe John Glenn happened at this time.
But I think I would say maybe it's less of, maybe it is about the fear, but I would say it's less about the fear and more about just, this is the 60s. This is all building up to 1969 where they put someone on the moon. So I have to assume that this is just like a topical thing. Like, this is like NASA and the space race must just be in the news like every single day throughout the 60s.
I mean, I think I've heard that there was a lot of fear about that because, people are a bit more superstitious or just religious, and like, man's not meant to go out there.
Oh, sure.
What if you bring something back?
Yeah, I mean, I like the mystery of like weird stuff in space, not because I'm scared of it from a religious perspective, but just it's cool, like mysteries out there and deep unknown, spooky shit. Yeah,
that Lovecraft shit too.
Yeah, that Lovecraft shit.
Cosmic horror.
Put it on a t-shirt. That Lovecraft shit. So there you go. It's called the Parallel, which I guess also makes me think of alternate dimensions, but. It could just be an alternate version of him, or it's not really him that came back down. It's someone impersonating him or something.
Like a pod person.
There's a lot of possibilities here.
Yes.
And maybe the reason why he's not and maybe it is a parallel Earth. Maybe he comes back down, and the reason why they're all saying it's not quite right is because he's landed in a different Earth where another version of him left already. Just like he left, but it's not his.
That's going to be the Twilight Zone twist. You've already figured it out.
It could be good, but I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know if it is.
That sounds like a very Twilight Zone twist.
It does. So
it's not my Earth.
He's going to find the Statue of Liberty, but instead of a torch, it's holding like I don't know, like an arrow or something. A gun.
It won't be too long in the future until we've replaced our torch with a gun and our Statue of Liberty.
Oh dear, that's you speaking like the main character in this episode. That's that cynicism.
A little bit. Yeah.
Cut me through. All right, this has been our Twilight Zone discussion. You can let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All of it helps us out a lot. Of course, you can support everything by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and getting episodes early at the early access tier and getting some other bonuses. And of course, check out our sci-fi movie podcast, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, over on MailFuzz Movies with myself and Tara. You get us talking about a lot of different sci-fi movies. By the time this goes out publicly, we'll have just done Hardware, I think. We're sort of wrapping up 90s season soon. At the end of the year, we're going to do a top 25 90s sci-fi movies, so that should be a fun time, so go check it out. But yeah, that is the show. That is us. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.